Hi guys, it's Evelyn from Twin Flames 3344. This is a special installment. It's really not about our usual topics, but very related to wounding and inner child wounding. Today I'm going to talk about myself a little bit. I hope you don't mind. I'm talking about physical malformations in sexuality. And I'm sorry if you feel my energy, because I'm a little nervous talking about this even today. So, we all have insecurities. I'm going to read, because I wrote this down so I wouldn't forget anything, and in case I got nervous, my mind tends to blank out, and this is a nerve-wracking thing for me to do. So, we all have insecurities about the way we look, right? We're all too fat or too thin, too flat-chested, too large-chested, small penis, big penis, our genetics, our DNA, what we've carried forward from past lives. So something to think about. What if, though, you have a defect, a malformation that affects not only your sexuality, but how you identify as being a man or a woman? What if you're born without a prostate or a uterus? No one can see you would have an issue, but this can be a deep childhood issue of unworthiness. Not being able to procreate, a man's seed, a woman's womb, and the ability to give life. This is, after all, what a woman is, right? The meaning for Eve is giver of life. We talk about breast implants and reduction, tummy tucks, facelifts, nose jobs, and even sex change surgery. All included in this category of how you deem your ability to attract and procreate. We talk about these things like the weather these days, and with so much available on the internet, children are able to learn about themselves in privacy now. However, when I was growing up, there was no internet, there were no cell phones, only what was available at the library or school. Nothing to tell me about my issue. I had seen a couple other kids with my issue, but nobody ever spoke about it, even to this day. I get blasted with emails soliciting plastic surgery, never advertising once this issue. I even looked up pics today for this issue, and not one came up. The reason this is that this issue is so sensitive. The reason it's so sensitive is because a child with this issue believes no one will ever desire them sexually. And if they did, the child would feel that there's something wrong with that person. So you see there the catch-22. What if a female could give life, but not sustain life? The malformation I'm talking about is inverted nipples. So simple and really nothing, some of you might say, but actually, it still affects me today at age 56. I can barely say the word nipple, let alone inverted nipple. I bring this up not for attention. God, no. This is the hardest thing I've ever done. And if I start crying, forgive me. I'm very private, and I have never been comfortable with attention from more than one or two people at a time. And that is why doing these videos is so freeing for me. I can speak to people without being immersed in their energy. I'm talking for my 7-year-old self and for all the other children with this issue. You see, my parents never spoke to me about this. My father was a doctor, and both of my mother's parents were doctors. And not a word. At 7 years old, I remember knowing that I wouldn't have happiness until I had my children at about 30 years old. I knew this at age 7. I knew at 7 years old that no man would ever desire me, not the way I wanted to be desired. I knew this at age 7. I remember sitting on the table at the doctor's office, who were all men in those days with cold hands, very formally dressed. So much stress and fear, I would bring my hair to the front, over your shoulders to cover my chest so nobody could see. My mother might have said things with an angry face like, "Oh, stop and don't be silly," yet never addressing it, ever. Annoyed by any form of self-protection. I remember a boy at the pool who didn't seem to be as affected as much. However, people think boys have it because they're chubby, not realizing they're chubby because they have this issue, and not the other way around. I saw a girl in line at the nurse's office like me. Little comfort in knowing this, although then I knew I wasn't alone. You become very good at hiding it from everyone. There were 2 accidental exposures to other kids growing up, and it was very traumatic. One was to a single friend in elementary school who wondered what was wrong with me. And she wasn't being malicious in any way, but still, to a child, that's traumatizing. And the other time was in gymnastics camp, where kids aren't as nice. And I denied what she had seen and called out. And fortunately, one of my older bunkmates on my team kind of shut her up to leave me alone. Thank you, Debbie. No one knew until I got married. And then it was only my husband. I made it through high school and college, and then finally, after being promiscuous in college, the only way to feel loved without involving the boobs, I met an abusive man like my mother, who gave me the courage to address my issue, so I could finally open up to loving someone, even if it was someone who was abusive. And this was after seeing a magazine article in college. I believe it was my last year. I think it was like a 17 magazine, relating inverted nipples to cancer. So of course that put a scare in me, because then I wondered, do I have cancer? So, and this is in college. So on my own, without telling anyone in my family, I made an appointment to finally have it corrected when I was 21 years old, after I'd come home and worked a year at college, and I came home. I made an appointment to have it corrected for $500 at the time. I had some money left over from my college money, and then I found the courage to tell my best friend so I'd have someone to go with me to the appointment. My doctor was appalled that my parents had never addressed it. And so then after that, I only ever told men that I had committed to. Really still a secret until this day, even though it was corrected when I was age 21. I cried most of my childhood, and my mother hated me for that. I was her main target whenever she got angry. I hope this helps other young girls take the mystery out of this issue, for those who are able to give life but not sustain life because the milk can't get to the child, figuratively speaking. Depending on the severity, some are definitely able to still breastfeed. But that is the only website you're really going to find any information about it. And even on that website, there were no pictures. Depending on the severity, like I said, some are able to breastfeed. Today, it can cost, and I don't know if this is still accurate, but about $1,000 to $3,000 to have this done. And it can be done. I had it done in an outpatient office, in the doctor's office, literally. It may take half an hour, nothing. And for those who are happy just as they are, here's to you. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope this changes the way society looks at this issue, and that it comes out more so that especially little girls don't feel isolated and unworthy. Thank you. Rise and be loved, guys.